Hello. We're going to look at the grammar topic of verbs now. This is Julie Chancho. Let's go. Let's look at verbs. So in general, verbs show actions. For example, she runs fast, or he is jumping for joy. Notice the letters in yellow. Those are the verbs in the sentence. Verbs can also show states, not just actions. So for example, the soup tastes delicious. It's in the state of being good or delicious. Or the baby feels sleepy. The baby is in the state of being tired. The baby's not awake and alert. It's how the baby feels at the moment. This is a state. Verbs can also show emotions. For example, they love each other. It's not an action, it's an emotion or a feeling. He enjoys cooking. He likes cooking. See how he's smiling and he's happy? This shows his emotion. He enjoys cooking. Sometimes verbs have objects. An object is something that receives the action of the verb. So with action verbs, sometimes we have objects. These kinds of verbs are called transitive. So transitive verbs always have an object after them. In this example, he gave her a present. We have two objects. She received the present, and the present was the thing that she received. Both of these are the object of the verb gave. He gave something to her. He gave her a present. We also have verbs that have no object. These verbs are called intransitive. This means we don't need anything after the verb to complete the meaning of the verb. The action doesn't fall on something else. So for example, the cup broke. It broke. It didn't break something else. It broke. Or the boat sank all by itself. It hit a rock and it sank. So there's nothing after the verb. This is an intransitive verb. Verbs are also used to show when an action occurred. We do this by changing the tense of the verb. So for example, I buy groceries every day. Every day is when this action occurs. On Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I buy groceries. It's a regular action. So I use the verb in the present tense. I bought groceries yesterday. So I put the verb in the past. This is something that happened once in the past, not now. I will buy groceries tomorrow. Tomorrow has not happened yet. So we use the future tense. We could also say, I am going to buy groceries tomorrow. This is another way of making the future tense in English. Or I could say, I have bought groceries for the week. This is what we call the present perfect tense. It shows something that started in the past, but has a consequence now. I bought the groceries this morning. However, now I have enough groceries for the whole week. So you can see how we change the verb tense to indicate when the action occurred. We have regular verbs and irregular verbs when we change the verb tense. The majority of verbs in English are regular verbs. These are easy to put into the past tense. All we need to do usually is just add the suffix ed to the end of the verb. So for example, call becomes called, or look becomes looked. help becomes helped. Do you notice the sound of the ed? Sometimes it changes depending on the word. So it doesn't always sound like ud. When I said looked or helped, it sounds like T actually, but it's written with ed. We also have irregular verbs in English, as most languages do. When we change the verb to the past tense, then it's not quite as easy. You can't just add ed. The word changes somewhere in the middle usually. So for example, the verb come becomes came in the past. We change the O to an A and we don't add ed. Or write becomes wrote. You need to memorize which verbs are regular and which verbs are irregular. We also have auxiliary verbs in English. These are also called helping verbs because they just help in the sentence. They don't really have a meaning, so we don't really translate them, but they help us to perform a function in the sentence. So in this sentence, do you like coffee? Do has the function of making the question. I do not like coffee. In this case, the do is used to help us to make the sentence negative. Do plus not makes the sentence negative. Or we can use do for emphasis. Yes, indeed, I do like coffee. Do is not required in this sentence. We could easily say, yes, I like coffee. But by adding do, we add more emphasis. We make the sentence stronger. Perhaps you said, you don't like coffee, do you? And I responded, yes, indeed, I do like coffee. So this gives us some emphasis. So pay attention to do. Sometimes you'll see it as does, depending on the person or the conjugation of the verb. In English, we also have modal verbs. Modal verbs generally show mood. So they don't show the action. They kind of change the feeling of the sentence. In this example, I wouldn't like that. Wouldn't helps us to show a conditional type of mood. It shows that if something else happened, or if I were you, I wouldn't like that. You should do that soon. Should is a modal verb that we use to show obligation or advice. He ought to go later. This also shows advice, but it's stronger than should. English has many modal verbs. These are just a few examples. They're also a type of helping verb in that they help the main verb. So you can see that the modal verb is underlined here. The main verb is not underlined. The modal verb helps the main verb or helps the sentence to show the mood in the sentence. Sometimes we have more than one verb in a sentence. There's not always just one. I have been going to Europe 3 times a year for the last few years. This is what we call the present perfect continuous tense. This tense is made by using 3 verbs. We need have plus been plus the main verb in the ing form. So it shows something that started in the past and continues to the present. So we need to use several verbs together to form the present perfect tense. In the second example, I go to Europe frequently because I love the people and the culture, and I adore traveling. Here, we have several different clauses in this sentence. So each clause has a subject and a verb. The verbs are in yellow. The easiest way to find the subject in English is to look just to the left of the verb. So, I go. Go is the verb, I comes before, therefore I is the subject. In these clauses, I is the subject for all of them. So you can have many clauses in one sentence. Each clause has at least one verb. Thank you.